In this video, we're going to talk about how you set up a loan amortization schedule. So we're going to find the payment amount here for this cost of a home with a $200,000 mortgage, 40-year fixed rate mortgage at 4.5%. So let's do the payment calculation. So I've demonstrated how to use the payment function in a previous video. I'll make a link right now to take you back to the previous video if you want to see how that's done. But we get that monthly payment is $899.12 with a 5 after it, means we round that up to 13 cents. And now if we want to get the total interest for that loan, let's go ahead and use our calculator for that. We're going to multiply that number, and I'm going to change it to $899.13 times 12 payments in 1 year times 40 years. This is a 40-year mortgage. So we get the total cost of the mortgage is $431,582. And now keep in mind that that number is principal plus interest. So we want to subtract the principal. So we're going to now subtract $200,000 from that number, and we will get that the total interest for the loan is $231,580.32. Now notice I also used Microsoft Excel when I did this, and so my math lab understands that there are some differences between the ways people calculate it. So it should give you credit for this problem if you use either $899.13. I think the spreadsheet uses the full decimals. And so you see I redid the calculation where I just took $899.1256747, repeated those same numbers, and I got a slightly different number, which is the same that we have here. So that's the total interest for the loan. Now we need to figure out a loan amortization schedule. So let me set that up for you and show you how we get these numbers. So to find the first amount of interest from your first payment, you take the outstanding balance. So at the beginning of the mortgage, you owe $200,000, and you multiply that times the rate of 4.5%, and you divide that by n, which is 12. So when we multiply those numbers and divide by 12, we get $750. Now, when we make a house payment, we're paying at $899.13. And so $750 of that $899 is going towards interest. So the principal is the difference between that. So you take your payment, subtract your interest, and you get that the principal, the amount that went to pay down your debt, was $149.13. So what that does is the final loan balance is now reduced by $149.13. So after the first month, you owed $200,000. You paid $149 of that went toward the principal. So now you owe $199,850.87. So when the next month comes around, you're going to calculate the interest on that amount because now you owe a little bit less. You pay down some of your principal. So for the second line, you'll take $199,850.87 times 0.045 divided by 12. And when you do that, you get $749.44. And likewise, you'll take your payment of $899.13, and now you'll subtract $749.44. And so notice that on that next payment, you paid, it's not much, but you paid 55 cents more of your payment went to pay down the balance of the loan. So now you owe even less. So now we're going to take that number $199,850.87, that balance we had, and now we're going to subtract $149.68. We get $199,701.19. And so this process repeats again. We're going to come down and take $199,701.19 and multiply that times 0.045 divided by 12. And so now we get the interest is $748.88. And so you see now when we do that calculation again, we get that our amount that goes toward principal went up yet again. And so now we would finally do the last subtraction here and subtract 150.25 from that number. And when we do that, we'll get that our balance is now $199,550.94. Now, if you'll notice, for example, right here, I subtracted right here and I got 149.68. But if you actually did that math, you would get 149.69. The reason this happened is because I used a spreadsheet. I want to demonstrate how to do this with a spreadsheet because I think it's a very valuable lesson to know, and it makes this process very automated. So I've populated a spreadsheet here with the amount of the loan, which was $200,000, the interest rate, which was 4.5%, the number of times compounded per year is 12, and the length of the loan is 40 years. So I'm going to type equals, and I'm going to use my payment function. So I've shown this before, but if you just type equals PMT, this will start to coach you on what terms go in next. So the first thing I need is my rate, and my rate is 4.5%, and I recall we divide that by 12. So I click the rate cell, hit divide, and then 12. Now comma, and now NPER is my number of periods. So I'm going to pay this thing for 12 months a year times 40 years, so 480 payments. and then the present value, PV, of the loan is the $200,000. And then we close parentheses, and we get that same payment number of $899.13. So that's, again, how you use the payment calculation. Okay, so now what I'm going to set up is 5 rows here for my first 5 payments of my loan. So I have, on my very first payment, I owe $200,000. So I'm going to say owe $200,000 times 4.5% divided by 12. And so we get $750 as we got previously. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the difference between $899.13 and see, so in Excel that's a negative number because it knows that that's money that you're paying, so it's negative to you. So if I take a negative number and add it to this 150, it's going to show that my amount of my loan was reduced by $149.13. So here in this cell, I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to take $200,000 and I'm going to add this negative number, which is like subtracting it. So now I owe $199,850.87. So that wasn't that much of a time savings, but now we're going to say, all right, the next month I'm going to take and I'm going to pay 4.5% divided by 12, and I'm going to multiply that times the current amount I owe, which is this $199,850.87. And so you see we get that same thing there that we got on the previous calculation of $749.44. And now here's where Excel can get really handy with this, is I'm going to take, notice what I did here, I took 750 and added it to that negative $899.13. So I want, when I copy this calculation down, I want it to stay fixed on $899.13. If you put a $ in front of the 5, when you copy this formula down and paste it, what you get is that this red cell, it moved down. Notice how this one was pointing at 750 and $899.13. When I moved down a cell and I put that $, this one stayed fixed on the $899.13, but it moved that down to $749.44. And I'm going to do the same thing here. This calculation started out with 200,000 minus the 149.13. So what I want to tell this to do now is to take this number that I did owe, and now I'm going to add it to the amount of principal I just paid right there. So it reduces that number. And likewise on this calculation, I always want this to stay fixed on these two percentage numbers. So I'm going to put a $, in front of the 2, which says stay fixed on row 2, stay fixed on row 3. And now when I copy this cell down, Control C and Control V, notice how that turns that number into the number we got previously, 748.88. And so since I have done this cell where it continually does this calculation here the way we want it to, I can copy that down. And now here's one way to copy, is to get the corner of the cell to where it's a black plus and you drag down and it gets that calculation. Likewise over here, I'm going to let this one move down. Every month I want to take this number and add it to this number to get this one. So this one I do want both of them to move. And so now that I have $ in front of everything and it's all fixed, I can highlight all 3 cells, get my little black plus in the corner and double click, and it will fill in 5 rows. So it makes this process really fast. And in fact, if I go down all the way until I get to 480, so Excel knows that if you have a pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and you drag down, notice Excel wants that to keep going up by 1. I'm going to drag it until I get all the way down to 480. So here I am down at the bottom. I'm at 480. I'm going to let it go, and it populates that all the way down to 480. The reason I'm going to 480 is because this is a 40-year mortgage that's calculated once a month. So we scroll back up to the top, and now that I have this calculation set up, I can grab that last bar and double click, and Excel knows that I want to fill out this whole data. So as you go down, you can get an amortization table for the entire length of the mortgage. And notice how the red number continues to go up. The principal is going up and the interest is going down every month because I'm starting to pay off my mortgage. And it doesn't happen very quickly. The more and more you get through the loan, the more you start to pay on principal. And now you see down here towards the bottom, the amount of principal is greater than the interest. And if we scroll all the way down to 480, you see at the very end, my very last payment will be almost all principal and almost no interest because I owe very little money at that point. So I hope this helps. I hope you enjoy the little extra time here I spent on the spreadsheet to show you how to do that, because I do think that's a useful skill to have. So you don't need to know how to do this, but I do think it is a great skill to have. So let me know if you have any questions.